Wedding industry contracts are essentially where most of my time is spent. I tell them that they live in contract law land, and everything that they do is going to be governed by that. There is a trend in the industry to do a lot on handshake deals and to not get a lot in writing. As a lawyer, it makes me extremely nervous, so I like to stress the reasons why we need to have everything in writing, and we need to make sure that everything is buttoned up. As I stated many times already, it's very collaborative. There's always going to be changes made on the run, but you need to talk to clients about why those changes or why your contracts need to be written down, and the importance of having an attorney drafted contract, because a lot of times they get these contracts that are passed down and passed down and passed down and passed down and disseminated through different vendors and changed, and they're not always up to date, or they won't always apply in that jurisdiction. So you need to make sure that they know their contracts need to be attorney reviewed. One of the big issues I've had with vendors is talking to them about drafting friendlier contracts. It's an industry that's unique in that it's a happy industry. Everybody wants the day to go well. It's a celebration, and when a potential bride or groom is faced with a contract that is heavy and very intimidating looking, they often get a little scared. And I've had clients that have had their potential clients back off because they were scared of the contract. So for me, when I draft contracts, I like to think about what is it that I would be comfortable signing if I was signing with a florist, if I was signing with a venue, if I was signing with a wedding planner. Granted, the contracts still need to be completely buttoned up and completely enforceable, but there are a lot of ways that we can adjust to make sure we match the industry that we're dealing with. So one of those is by drafting what I call friendlier contracts. You can do this by changing your language and tone. We work with the font choice, the length of the contract itself, and on the next page I have an example of that. So the page on the left, the example on the left is a more traditional agreement that I drafted for a photographer, and then the one on the right is a friendlier version of that agreement. So when you are drafting an agreement, you want to make sure you use as little legalese as possible. Get rid of the heretofores, get rid of the wherefores. I try to think that if it's something I don't usually say out loud, I should probably get rid of it. You want to make sure that your vendors understand their contracts, and when there's a ton of heretofore, wheretofore, now, therefore, whereas, it's a little bit intimidating. They don't know that they can just kind of scoot over those terms, and that they don't really may not know what they mean. So you want to take them out. If they're not doing any specific purpose, take it out and make it easier to read. One of the little known, I guess, facts you could say is when you use fonts that are sans serifed fonts, which means they're fonts without feet, it makes things look a little less formal. So the engagement on the left-hand side, that's a serifed font. So you can see the T and the A, they have little feet on the bottom. And the one on the right, there are no little lines and little feet. And it's a very kind of subconscious way of making an agreement look a little less intimidating to a vendor's potential client. I try to keep my vendor contracts as short as possible, because when you have a bride or you have a groom coming through, they're not going to want to sit down and have to read a 20-page agreement to rent their venue. And one of the ways I do this is by condensing the boilerplate into maybe a 1 or 2 paragraph standard clause. You can just stick the notices, the modification clauses, all of that into one kind of larger paragraph at the end that's still enforceable and still highlights what needs to be highlighted and still points out any sort of jurisdictional waivers, but that just condenses it space-wise. That being said, you're going to have vendors come to you for specific clients who may be pushing back or may be pushing for certain things in a contract and want the contract to be a bit more formal. I have come to learn that when there are clients like this, their parents tend to be lawyers, or their parents tend to be, paying for something and want the agreement to be a bit more formal. But this is more of a outlier and not usually the norm. Help your client work with those clients and make sure the changes that they need made are made, but know that that's not a reflection on your work as a drafting attorney. Know that it's a reflection on what either that client or that client's parents are interested in seeing in that contract. Another way I shorten down agreements is by putting things in exhibits and schedules. Pulling out those long lists and checklists and things that you may have in a wedding venue. You don't use open flames, don't use fire, your guests are your responsibility, not ours. Those kind of things can be put in an exhibit so that it kind of breaks down that contract a little more, so it's not just a 20-page document. Instead, it's a 5-page contract with a 5-page exhibit and a 5-page fee schedule. And that just is another kind of unconscious way of making it shorter and making it more condensed and making it easier for a vendor's clients to read and understand and not feel as intimidated by. Because the last thing you want to do is give your client a contract that just scares away their potential business, because you want your clients to succeed as well.